Have you ever felt like you're standing on shifting sand? Like the ground beneath you isn't stable? In our modern world, change is constant. Global events, economic shifts, technological acceleration, personal career changes, relationship uncertainties, health worries. It often feels like we're living in an era defined by unpredictability. This feeling of not knowing what's coming next, of having our plans disrupted, can be deeply unsettling. It triggers anxiety, makes us feel out of control, and can lead to sleepless nights and constant worry. If you feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of uncertainty in life, you are absolutely not alone. It's a fundamental human challenge, perhaps amplified in the complexity of the 21st century. We crave stability, predictability, safety. Our brains are wired to seek patterns and anticipate the future. So, when the future feels hazy or threatening, it creates significant internal distress. But while the world outside might be turbulent, what if we could find a way to build resilience within ourselves? What if we could learn not just to survive uncertainty, but to navigate it with greater calm and even find strength in its presence? This isn't easy, of course. Our automatic reactions often make it harder. To truly build resilience against uncertainty, we need to understand why it affects us so deeply from a psychological perspective, and then draw on timeless philosophical wisdom that has grappled with the nature of change and the human condition for centuries. Let's first turn to psychology to understand the inner workings of our reaction to the unknown. Why does uncertainty trigger such a strong response? From a psychological and neurological standpoint, our brains are constantly trying to predict the future to keep us safe. The amygdala, the part of the brain involved in processing emotions like fear, is highly sensitive to novelty and ambiguity. When faced with uncertainty, it signals potential threat, activating the body's stress response system, the fight-or-flight mechanism. This is an ancient survival mechanism, but in the face of, say, economic uncertainty or a pending job review, it manifests as chronic anxiety, racing thoughts, and physical tension. Psychologists also talk about the need for cognitive closure. We have a fundamental desire to have clear, definite answers and to avoid ambiguity. When things are uncertain, this need is frustrated, leading to discomfort, impatience, and a rush to judgment or action just to reduce the feeling of not knowing. This can push us to make hasty decisions or cling rigidly to outdated plans. Furthermore, our minds have a negativity bias. When faced with uncertainty, we are more likely to anticipate negative outcomes than positive or neutral ones. This is an evolutionary hangover. Better to assume the rustle in the bushes is a predator than a harmless breeze. But in modern life, this translates to worst-case scenario thinking, constantly imagining disasters that are unlikely to happen, fueling anxiety about the uncertain future. Psychology also shows us that our coping mechanisms for uncertainty can be unhelpful. We might engage in excessive worrying, believing that thinking about all possible bad outcomes will somehow prepare us or prevent them, avoidance, pretending the uncertainty isn't there, or seeking constant reassurance, which is rarely satisfying for long. These are attempts to regain control or reduce anxiety, but they often backfire, trapping us in a cycle of fear and inaction. So, psychology gives us the science of the reaction, the neurological wiring, the cognitive needs, the unhelpful coping habits. But how does philosophy help us reframe uncertainty and build a deeper, more resilient response? Philosophy, particularly ancient wisdom traditions, has long recognized that change and unpredictability are not bugs in the system of life, but features of it. The Stoics, for instance, built an entire philosophy around navigating a world they had limited control over. They emphasized the fundamental distinction between what is within our power, our thoughts, judgments, desires, actions, and what is not, everything else, external events, other people's opinions, the future, the past, our health, our reputation. For a Stoic, focusing energy and worry on things outside your control is irrational and the primary source of suffering. Facing uncertainty requires shifting focus inward, cultivating virtue, acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance in the present moment, regardless of external outcomes. The famous phrase amor fati, love of fate, sometimes associated with Stoicism and later Nietzsche, isn't about passive resignation, but about actively accepting and even embracing everything that happens, including uncertainty, as the material upon which you can practice your virtue. From ancient Greece, the philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "Change is the only constant." His philosophy highlights the flux and flow of reality. Trying to resist change, To demand static certainty from a dynamic universe is fundamentally fighting against the nature of existence itself. Recognizing this universal principle can help contextualize our personal struggle with uncertainty. It's not just your life that's uncertain, it's the very fabric of reality. In Buddhism, the concept of Anicca, impermanence, is central. The teaching is that everything is constantly changing: physical objects, feelings, thoughts, relationships, situations. Clinging to things as if they are permanent, including states of certainty or comfort, is seen as a source of suffering. Cultivating mindfulness and acceptance of impermanence is a key path to inner peace, allowing you to flow with change rather than being crushed by it. Even existentialism, while emphasizing the anxiety that comes with absolute freedom and the lack of inherent meaning, also offers a form of resilience. Facing the groundlessness, the idea that there's no predetermined path or cosmic certainty, can be terrifying. But it also highlights that you have the freedom to create meaning and choose your response despite the lack of external guarantees. Authenticity in the face of uncertainty becomes a virtue. This is where the power of combining psychology and philosophy becomes clear. Psychology explains our reactive brain, the automatic fear response to uncertainty. Philosophy provides a higher-level framework, a wisdom tradition that says, yes, the world is uncertain, it always has been, and that's okay. Here's a perspective that can help you stand firm within that reality. Psychological techniques can help us manage the feeling of anxiety triggered by uncertainty. Philosophical perspectives can help us manage our relationship with uncertainty itself, shifting from fear and resistance to acceptance and presence. So, how do we practically apply this? How do we build resilience when the future feels like a question mark? First, use psychological strategies to manage the immediate anxiety. Mindfulness is incredibly powerful here. Instead of letting your mind race into hypothetical futures, practice bringing your attention back to the present moment, your breath, your senses, the task at hand. Uncertainty exists in the future. Anxiety about it exists now. Grounding yourself in the present reduces the power of future-based worry. Cognitive reframing from psychology helps challenge your negative bias. When your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario, ask yourself, is that truly the only possible outcome? Is it the most likely outcome? What are other possibilities? What have I handled well in the past? This isn't about positive thinking. It's about realistic thinking, introducing possibility into the space where uncertainty has only imagined dread. Now, layer in the philosophical resilience. Embrace the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control. You cannot control global events, other people's decisions, or many outcomes. But you can control your effort, your attitude, your preparation, your response. Pour your energy into these controllable aspects, and consciously release the need to control the uncontrollable. This isn't passive, it's a deliberate act of redirecting your mental energy constructively. Adopt the philosophical stance of acceptance of change. Remind yourself that impermanence, Anicca, is natural. Trying to force stability onto a fluid reality is a source of suffering. Practice accepting change, not as defeat, but as the fundamental rhythm of life. This perspective can loosen the grip of anxiety that comes from resisting the inevitable. Consider the existentialist view. Uncertainty is intrinsically linked to freedom. While daunting, the lack of a predetermined path means you have the power to choose your direction and create meaning despite the lack of external certainty. Find strength in this responsibility and the potential it holds for forging your own way. And practice courage. Courage, in the philosophical sense, like Aristotle's virtue, isn't the absence of fear, but acting rightly in the presence of fear. Facing uncertainty requires courage. Start with small acts of tolerating uncertainty, maybe delay checking your email for an hour, or sit with a small unanswered question instead of immediately seeking a definitive answer. Build your capacity to tolerate the not knowing. In summary, our struggle with uncertainty is a deeply psychological experience, rooted in our biology and cognitive wiring. But the ability to navigate it gracefully is profoundly philosophical, requiring a shift in perspective about the nature of reality, time, and control. By combining psychological techniques like mindfulness and reframing to manage the feeling of anxiety, with philosophical mindsets from Stoicism, Buddhism, and Existentialism to accept and even find strength in uncertainty, you build a robust inner resilience. You cannot control the waves of change and uncertainty that crash upon your life. But by understanding your psychological response and adopting a philosophical stance, you can learn to stand firm, or even surf. Thank you for exploring this crucial topic with me. If you found this discussion helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more insights on navigating life's challenges through psychology and philosophy. What helps you deal with uncertainty? Share your thoughts and tips in the comments below.